right, today is May the 3rd, and um, I'm back in Genesis chapter 39, where I'm taking a close look at Joseph and his time as it begins there in Egypt. And this is a really interesting story, this portion of Joseph's life. The reason why I say that is because Joseph, he finds himself there in Egypt. We know from the previous chapters where basically he was sold into slavery, okay? Um, Nevertheless, the scripture reminds us that God was with Joseph. Catch that, you know, or say pin that as number one. God was with Joseph even though he found himself in Egypt in slavery, having been sold by his own brothers. His own family betrayed him. But let's go in. Let's take a look at a few things that the Lord allows us to see in the scriptures as it relates to Joseph's time there in Egypt. In reading chapter 39, there were a few things that stood out to me that I feel like blessed my spirit, and I just want to share those as a part of my vlog. Um, the first thing is that although the scripture refers to Joseph Master, I'm just going to pin it as Joseph's boss. I'm going to say one and the same, so just stay with me, okay? All right, so Joseph has this boss, and his boss sees that God is with him. Isn't that interesting? His boss can see, his Egyptian boss can see that God is with him. All right. So that leads his boss to favor him in a way where he trusts him. He gives Joseph authority over everything he has. He is chief in command, however you want to coin that. Let's say it that way. Imagine, if you work for a company and you knew the owner of the company, and the company sees you're blessed. You've got your ear to God's voice. God is right there with you. And he tells you, Linda, I want you to run my business. I trust you. Balls in your court, you run with it. All right, so that's Joseph, okay? That's where we begin in the story. And if you read in the scriptures, you'll see where the scripture makes it very plain how much authority Joseph had. But here's the thing, you would think that from that point it would go all the way up, right? As the young people like to say, all the way up. But here's the thing, Joseph is given authority over everything in the land and his master's house and all of these things, but they're in his master's house except for his master's wife. But this is where it gets a little tricky. His boss's wife likes Joseph. Yeah, she likes him like that. She wants him like that, right? um, it can be interesting when you find yourself trapped in complicated situations. In today's um, work environment, some people might say a hostile work environment, He's there at his master's house, his boss's house. He has this authority. Everybody reports up to him. He's over everything. But the boss's wife keeps making indecent proposals towards him, advances. And he sets the record straight. He's very clear, like, I can't do that. I'm going to let you read it in the scripture for yourself. She says, I can't do that. Uh, but you'll see over near verse 7 where um, the wife casts, it says, these longing eyes at him. You know how everybody got these eyelashes today? And, women can sometimes be a little sneaky. I'm a woman, but I'm just saying the way I see it. Some women to know another woman got a man, and they come up even to church to say, hey, Pastor, I really enjoyed the message. But instead of just saying that, they want to bat their lashes and do all other kind of things, kind of drop it, how they say that you drop the hook to see if they gonna catch on to it. But Joseph's real clear with her. I can't do that. First of all, it's wrong. And then he even goes on to let her know it would be a sin against my God. And see, that's one thing that I believe that as believers today, we have to understand that although we can do something wrong, but a sin is a sin against the God that we say we love, the God that we say we adore, the God that we say we worship, we trust. But Joseph, he's clear. He says, I can't do that. That'd be a sin against God. But here's how it gets interesting. You know, like I say, the devil stay on his job, you know. Um, and you just imagine, he's at work, you know, and all of a sudden one day he's there at work and he's there in the house and nobody's around. And see, the wife don't let go. How you ever run into somebody that don't understand the word no? It just got two letters, N-O, but they act like they don't know what that means. Yeah, this was her. She saw the emptiness, everybody being gone, as opportunity for him, for her to get with him again. And perhaps maybe she was very beautiful. Maybe she wasn't used to men turning her down. Who knows? It really don't go into all that. I'm just saying, because of her persistence of not understanding, no, it's a sin. I don't live like that. Joseph was clear. She goes in, everybody gone, she tries to get with him. When Joseph catches the situation that now it then got a little bit more complicated, he runs. But she grabs hold to his garment. So he leaves something behind, but he gets out of there. In other words, he doesn't touch her, but he leaves something behind, something that belonged to him, right? And again, you're dealing with somebody that's not used to or doesn't respect a no, even when you're clear. She decides to use his garment as evidence to say that she was taken advantage of. She goes to his wife. Let's just cut to her husband, excuse me. She goes to Joseph Boss and lies. Let's just get to the point and says he tried to take advantage of me. So here it is, blessed man of God. Joseph Ball sees God's with him. He chooses to bless Joseph, trust Joseph, but now the wife says he tried to take advantage of me. All right, so here it is. Now Joseph gets sentenced. He gets sentenced to being in the king's prison. Isn't that interesting? So here it is. I pondered the thought myself, like, why didn't they just kill Joseph? And I said to myself, this scripture, I'm just paraphrasing, I'm just thinking, okay? perhaps maybe they didn't kill Joseph because maybe the husband didn't really believe this woman. Maybe she had a reputation. Maybe she had tried this before. For some reason, they didn't kill him. Back during that times, it didn't take much for them to serve up your head on a platter. Let's keep it real. But Joseph finds himself in prison, and the scripture records that even in prison, God was with him. Y'all catch that? God is with Joseph in prison. Yeah, that's my timer going off. I'm trying to learn how to be brief, but I'm working, guys. Let me get on to my point. He's in prison. It's noted that he's in prison. The person running the prison favors Joseph and puts him in leadership even while he's in prison. So look at here. Here we go. Let's roll it back for a second. Joseph gets betrayed by his brothers. He gets sold into slavery. The boss or master that owns Joseph, notice God is with him, gives him favor to be overseer of everything he has. Joseph gets indecent proposals from his boss's wife. He turns them down, explains to the woman why. He over explains why. It ain't you, it's me. I can't do this thing. I don't sin. Ain't you, it's me. Right? Okay. The wife sets him up, uses the garment as evidence. Joseph finds himself in prison again, right? He finds himself, at first it was a pit, now he's in a prison. But then, even in prison, God is with him and he's favored again because God is with him, and he's made overseer of all the prisoners, even in prison. Okay. But look at here. You remember Joseph's dream? What got him into all of this in the first place? He told his brothers and his father that he saw in a vision that they were bowing down to him. So most of us would assume that some type of leadership, some type of nobility, something of the nature that would make others bow. But here it is, things come into pass. Sometimes what we see in our visions may not actually be what we think, but God is still working even in it. And so, even in looking at all just that there, it makes me ponder the thought, was God preparing Joseph for something more? Because we notice God doesn't leave him, right? He stays right there with them. He's there with them in this master's house, his boss's house. It had to be pretty nice, if the boss had servants and he needed somebody to oversee it, right? He's there with them in prison. Um, but yet God is right there with Joseph. Joseph is being prepared. We could say that. Joseph is learning how to lead in times where he's favored, in times where he's propositioned indecently, in times where it's less ideal. They're in the prison. He's learning how to still lead, right? Because we know what comes with leadership. It's not always glory. It's not always attaboys. It's not always pats on the back. You don't always get the big corner office, right? When it's time to lead, right? But Joseph is being prepared. He's on a high, then he goes through complication, he hits a low. but he's still living up to what? The dream. But yeah, that's where my mind went in this story with Joseph. Thinking about the aspect of sometimes you find yourself in the manifestation of what God decides to do, you find yourself in complicated situations. Um, but God doesn't leave you. And even in the midst of all of this, it's like whether it's a high or low, but still trusting God. Joseph stayed right there, acknowledging, I don't want to sin against my God. It ain't you, it's me. Even in prison, Joseph is still mindful. I trust God. God still favors Joseph. This is one of those situations in life where they say, even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, that leave you saying, but God. And I know it may sound a little cliche to a lot of folks, but there are some things that you can go through in life where uh, it's complicated. It's not, it doesn't unfold quite the way you thought. Because I know for certain this is probably not what Joseph thought was going to occur based on the dream that he had. But there he is, still acknowledging God, trusting God, and still going through what God is allowing him to go through. And I see him going through this as preparation. I don't know about you. Let me know. Drop me a comment. Let me know your take on it. But have you ever went through something in your life where if it had not been for God, that if others didn't see that God's hand was on you, that the situation would have turned out worse. They could have killed you. Uh, you could have been in a worse off situation. We know Joseph could have been in a worse off situation even while in prison. He didn't have to get favor there, but he did. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. This is what I read again. If you want to follow along, this is Genesis 39, where Joseph finds himself a slave in Egypt. And you got to know the story doesn't end there. This is just Genesis 39. But drop me a comment. I love to hear about your take on it. I would love to hear whether or not you have a but God testimony where it got complicated, but others saw that God was with you, all while you knew that it was God with you, helping you keep your peace and holding your hand as you went through the preparation that he had for you. All right, I'm out for now. Be blessed.